Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another CarMiZa video. This one's going to be another fun one, folks, at least for me, hopefully for you as well. I am finally going to build the final version of what I call the pull floor, which actually is going to be motorized. So this piece right here, if you've been watching the series, has just been a mock-up piece. I've got some fresh aluminum here, and in this video, we're going to build, we're going to start building. Let's see how far we get done in this video. We're going to build what I call the car floor, which is going to be the piece underneath here. There will be two pieces, and they're going to be the pieces that cover up that side and that side of the floor area. That's going to be the first piece, and then from there, we'll move on to the actual pull floor. We've got a hinge coming in, a linear actuator for motorization. Again, I'll get done as much as I can in this video, but this will likely be maybe a few videos to get this part completed. So let's go ahead and get started. One quick thing, if you want to see additional details about the build, check out CarMiZa.com. All right, first step for doing, again, what I call the car floor is going to be to build some foam templates, which we're going to transfer to MDF, which we're going to transfer to aluminum. The aluminum's not cheap, so I want to make sure it's right. So what I've done is I mounted the zebra wood floor where it goes, and while the side panels and the near wall were in, you can just barely see it. I just took a Sharpie and just ran around the perimeter. That way I know where it lies. Now what I'm going to do is start cutting foam and get foam placed into here to be in the correct locations. Okay, first piece is roughed out. I made sure I went right square against the front rail. I also made sure, obviously, the foam is going to be at least the same size as the exposed area. And I also made sure I can still get to the bolt, Carl's bolt, to be able to put the side panels back in. I'm going to put those in just a moment, then trace out where this is going to go, which gives me my final perimeter. Notice here on this foam, it was not quite big enough, so I just took some packing tape and added another piece. This is where I'm going to do the seam, which is basically in the center of the spare tire hole. And you'll see in just a bit where I will also mark and cut out for the spare tire. So that's the first side. Now I'll do the other side, get that into this location here. All right, so I have this piece basically roughed into its position, or in its position, and then I needed to do another kind of a filler piece here. Little trick, if you're not aware, I got it in place and then put 3 lines. This way, when I take it out, I can bring it over to the bench and easily align it when I go and add my packing tape. So now I can come over here, get it lined up properly, apply my tape, and it'll be in the right position. All right, both pieces of foam are in. I intentionally did not connect them because I do need to deal with cutting out the hole for the spare tire. And again, the overall objective here is to be able to replicate the placement, get it square to the front rail, and make sure it overlaps the area where the side panel and near walls go. So now I'm going to put those back in, and we'll go ahead and trace this pattern out, remove those, cut the foam, and make sure it all fits properly. And there we go. Very nice, all fits in there. Originally I was thinking I'll take a pencil, trace it, pull all this out, cut it, but are you thinking what I'm thinking? Why not just take a razor very carefully, not go through the Dynamat, but basically just go through at least the top layer of foam, cut it, pull it out. Then I still will pull all the pieces out, take all the remnants underneath, put all the pieces back, put the pieces in, make sure they fit properly. So let's see how that works. All right, pieces cut, back in the car just for placement, and everything looks good. So now is going to be a little bit tricky. I've got an idea on how I'm going to do the hole for the spare tire, but it's very important that that is quite consistent. So let me give that a shot. All right, it's kind of tough to see, but I took a pick tool, went along the inside wall of the spare tire area, and just poked along there. This is going to be, that'll end up giving me a area that is, if I cut that away, I'm going to want to cut more. I know that. So it's just going to rough it out until I can get in there, and then you'll see what I'll do next. Okay, this is one of those things where I can just keep working up to it until I get the final look that I want. So I took those pick tool holes, went in, a little bit further, cut that, put this back in. Now it's double-sided taped again. Now I'll take a pencil and just hold it vertically against that wall, run it in there, and then cut that line, and we'll see what that looks like. All right, quick minor adjustment to the perimeter. I realized that I'm gonna have the carpet on the side panels and near wall going all the way down to the floor, and I'm gonna leave a gap for that carpet. So I'm gonna take an 1/8 of an inch off this entire perimeter and then continue working on the spare tire hole. All right, so there is the foam cut out. This is just gonna be kind of roughed out in that spare tire well for now. This is one of those examples of where I can start going crazy, and I'm gonna try not to. So I'm gonna transfer this as is to MDF. I'll probably cut it a 1/16 over, and then I'll do some sanding to get it fitted properly, and end up with a really good proper fit with the MDF. One other quick thing too, you might be cringing when you look at this hole and the way I've cut it. I found something. I've got a bicycle wheel that's exactly the diameter of what this hole should be. However, thank you BMW, the hole is not perfectly symmetrical. There is, in fact, like right here, this is kind of a big bump out. There's a frame rail that comes in here. And so you can see there's a pretty big dip there. So I'm going to try to make my piece conform to that area as much as possible while trying to keep it as round as possible. I have also decided the placement of this is going to basically determine the way that I'm going to wrap the carpet. So this will be carpet. This will just be black carpet. It's going to come up here, and then this piece will be carpeted, and I'll roll it over, and the two will form a little bit of a seam here, which is perfectly fine. This is the spare tire well, and I consider it to be kind of industrial and mainly functional. All right, cut the 1/4 inch MDF. Did a little bit of sanding along this edge, but as you can see, it is exactly 1/8 of an inch away, which is my tolerance there. Still gonna work on the curve. We'll get to that in a bit. But if I take this, it's up against this lip right here, and I try to move the panel, I've got no play. So my perimeter on this piece is, I would say, precision. Now I'll do the other piece, get the perimeter set on that one. All right, perimeter for both pieces is very solid. Very happy with it. Took about, between cutting it and tweaking it, maybe 45 minutes, so not bad. Now I got to deal with the fact that that looks like I grabbed a rat by the tail and let it chew a hole in the MDF. We'll get this cleaned up. Okay, this is going to be what I will use to sand and get that inside radius proper for the spare tire well. Wish me luck. All right, so that gives you an idea of how extensive some of this can be. I probably should get a step counter. I probably walk about a mile every night I'm out here. So as you can see, much nicer, and it goes right along that factory edge. I went a little bit fat here just because there's not much meat there, and I want to be able to get a screw right in here. So I'm good with that. I'm very happy with it. This will, again, the carpet's gonna, this will be the aluminum. The carpet will roll underneath here, and there's just enough room for that lip to go under, and then this will roll up, and the two will kind of form a nice little joint. You probably won't even see it. So that side is good. Now it's time to do the other side, and as you can see, I've got definitely some more meat to take off. I could probably really carefully take a little bit more with the jigsaw, and then I'll have to do the same thing. Took me probably 40 minutes or so to get that sanded, and I'll do the same thing on this side. Okay, so here's the driver's side. I just used a pencil, came up from underneath and drew, kind of scribed the perimeter of the tire well at a little bit more of an angle to get a little bit more of this meat off. Hit it with a jigsaw, and I'm like 80% of the work that I did on the other side. So now it's just going to be a matter of cleaning this up, tweaking it. This is something I didn't show. What I like to do on something like this is kind of break it into sections and just, you know, work this section, put it in the car, make sure it's good. That's what I was doing in the video I didn't show you earlier. Then do this section, so on and so forth. And then once I've got them all kind of down to the right size, then just a matter of making sure the whole thing is good. I also took a little bit of 40 grit by hand and made sure I didn't round this because, again, the bearing is going to run on this for the router. So I'll get this one cleaned up and ready to go. All right, car floor MDF templates are complete. Let's go ahead and get it in the car and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, there are the templates in the car. So it came out really good, very happy with it. I ended up opening up the hole a little bit bigger, just to be really careful about the transition. There's going to be a seam there, but again, it's going to be black carpet, unbacked, not ozite, but something similar. You really are probably not going to see it. I'm being really, really particular as always. But all in all, very happy with it. My gaps are very precise. Everything is good. And it came out great. So a lot of work for templates that aren't even going to be used. But again, if you've been following my series, I believe that if you start having small errors, they're going to compound throughout everything you do. So my objective is to do everything as good as I possibly can. So, all right, again, that'll be it for tonight. I will likely come back out here tomorrow, if not the following night, and we'll continue and we'll get these made out of aluminum. Talk to you soon. And just like that, it is tomorrow. Here is the newly arrived hinge. More on that in a little bit. So at this point, what I'm going to do again is take these templates, transfer them over to the 14 gauge aluminum, get these cut, and then we'll get them routed. Okay, got the MDF panels laid out on the aluminum. This again is 14 gauge, which is just over a 1/16. And now I'll go ahead and get these rough cut. Okay, the aluminum is rough cut, pretty straightforward. If you notice too, I utilize that little hole in the table. That way I've got both pieces, you know, I don't have a large piece hanging off the side. I've got both pieces supported. So now at this point, what I'll do is peel the backing off too. There's a clear backing on this aluminum, and I intentionally cut it with the backing on because it's going to make it a little bit easier to clean this up really good, especially because if you notice I use WD-40 to cut with a metal cutting blade on a low speed. So now I'll peel the backing off, give it a good clean with rubbing alcohol, get everything really good and dry, and then I will double side tape the MDF patterns to the aluminum. All right, next thing I did was apply a generous amount of double side tape, focusing on the perimeter. Now I will attach the MDF to these pieces. All right, now is when the fun starts. I don't know why, but for some reason I get completely sketched out routering aluminum. I've done it a decent amount on this car. This is the only time I've ever done it. I've never done it in the past, done it miles of routering, but never aluminum. So I get a little freaked out. I've closed the garage door to make sure that the mess doesn't get all over the E55, because this creates an absolute nightmare of little shards of aluminum. But with that, let's go ahead and kick things off. All right, so that's basically the name of the game. It's going to give me a really nice clean edge, very sharp too. You got to be really careful with this stuff. So I'll go ahead and finish the rest of this in the other piece, and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, everything went well without incident. I don't know if you can see this, Looks like it's snowed aluminum. So, all right, time to get this cleaned up with the shop vac. All right, both pieces are good. Everything went well. Mess is cleaned up. And again, using the router with a flush trim bit, you'll get a really nice clean edge and a perfect copy. So at this point, I'll go ahead and carefully separate these. I normally will use a couple of putty knives to release the double-side tape, give everything another good clean, and then we'll go test fit it in the car and see how it looks. All right, one other quick thing. It's like dark out now. I like to go over aluminum like this with 40 grit on a random orbital just to rough up the surface. This will be something that I'm going to do to all the aluminum pieces before upholstery, but I figure I might as well do this one now while I'm in there. Voila, car floor is cut. Not quite done yet, but close. What's taken about 20 minutes so far in this video took about 9 hours to build that. But again, you've seen the whole process, and I'm very, very particular. I'm doing the best work I can. I'm not going to blame tools or whatever, but you can see the level of detail, precision. It's as good as I can get it, which is the whole, again, philosophy of this build. So with the car floor, there's two main remaining items. There's going to be leveling the floor, which it's miles from level right now. This car is just a complete nightmare when it comes to things being asymmetrical, weird stuff in the way. We've got the fuel pump access door causing problems over here. More on that later. So the next step is going to be to level the floor. I'm going to try to get it as low as possible because I've already got a bunch of drawings figured out with the hinge and the motorization and all that. So this needs to go as low as possible, but be symmetrical. And secondly, once I get it lower or leveled and lowered, will be the mounting of it. And I've got a couple different things that I am considering there, either magnets or just mechanical fasteners, screws and nut certs and all that. So that's going to be it for tonight, and I will see you, if not tomorrow, it'll be the following night. Talk to you soon. And just like that, it's the next night. And I've completed most of the leveling. So let me go ahead and pull, well, actually, before I pull this out, I want to show you what I did. I wanted to get this where I had about 1/8 of an inch. It's basically sitting just below the front rail there. I also needed to build up certain areas because of how the car is asymmetrical. I'm putting pressure on this. But doing so, I had to add a little bit more Dynamat, just a couple of thin layers of Dynamat there. And that gave me a nice consistent edge here. And then did the same thing on the other side. And you can see again, once I put fasteners in here, that will give me that perfect gap. Now, to get there, this again would be an example of things that maybe not all builders show. I show everything, right? The good, the bad, the ugly. It's not ugly. I had to very carefully and tactfully remove some of the Dynamat. There was 2 layers in most of the trunk. So it was causing it to sit a little bit too high just in those areas. Again, the floor is like corrugated. It's just horrible. BMW wasn't considering this when they built the car. Now what I'll do, because I'm really fussy, is I will take everything out of the trunk, all the parts, and I will lay Dynatape down, hit it with a roller on these areas, which is just an aluminum back tape. I use that to basically, there's a bunch of it in here, but it's all worn off because I get it out of the trunk so much. This is a piece right here. It's basically just an aluminum tape with the Dynamat logo, and it makes it all look consistent. Again, that's an example of something that I think I'm showing that maybe some other people, doing builds, that's the stuff you may not see, kind of behind the scenes. So let me go ahead and do that, and in just a moment, I will show you what it looks like with the tape in place. All right, here I am mid-surgery on this. I got all the pieces out, and this is gonna allow me to get my tape. I'll overlap everything and get it in place. I've also pulled off the access door for the fuel pump. This allows me to be able to get in there and make sure nothing's in the way because the fuel tank is right here, but 1 inch below this. So I gotta be super careful putting fasteners in. I've already put them in. I did it for, there's one riv nut right here. For the zebra wood, which I did the same thing. I can feel it right in there. There's something in the way right just below it, about 1 inch, 1.5 inches below it, which is the fuel tank. So I'm gonna leave this off, which will allow me to, I'll probably get my borescope in there even for the areas back here that I can't see where I wanna put a couple more fasteners. Later, should I ever need to get to this, if there's a failure, I will be able to lift up the zebra wood floor, put a block underneath it. I've already got something figured out for that, for maintenance and that type of thing, to be able to service things. And I'll be able to pull this out, this cover off, and be able to get to the fuel pump. All right, Dyna-tape in place. It does serve a functional purpose as well to kind of mask or bury the sharp edges from the aluminum backing that's on the actual Dynamat. So it is functional. Plus it also, a little pro tip if you're not aware, if you've got exposed butyl, I'm sure I do here somewhere, little pieces like that. When you get, if you do get in and out of the car, you'll get the butyl all over your clothes and it'll wreck your clothes. So far I haven't figured out a way to get it out. I just buy new shorts or sweatpants or whatever. So, and again, this is aluminum back tape. It's super, super thin and it gives me a consistent look, but now I'll still be able to get a nice flat placement on those areas that were too high. So with that, I'll go ahead and get the panels back in the car. Panels back in the car. And if you watched my last video, I think it was, where I did a bunch of tweaks, I'm getting the exact same gaps when I put things in. These are in place. So that's exactly 1/8 of an inch. Same thing on the other side. So that problem is solved. So now at this point, the last piece for the car floor is the mounting. And I'm gonna probably take a half hour to an hour and really very carefully lay this out. We're gonna grab the borescope. I just grabbed it and went inside there. There's a wiring harness that's mounted to the underside of this, so I gotta be really careful there. Ultimately, I need to figure out where my screws gonna go and make sure that I've got clearance underneath, and then go ahead and get them set up. So I'll do a little bit of planning and I'll check back here in just a bit. Okay, it's the next night, and before we determine the hole locations, one of the things I like to do is just kind of lay out the screws that I'm going to use, the countersink, all of that, which I've done just with this piece of scrap, and make sure everything is going to go properly. These are a 1024, number 10 screw, 24 thread per inch. And again, I'll just get this kind of laid out, figured out. We'll do, I'll use the drill press, set the depth and all of that for this when I go to actually drill the holes. But at this point, again, we're gonna go take a look at the car and identify where these holes are gonna go. All right, so here I am with the borescope, taking a look around. My objective here is to make sure that the screws land in one of the high areas, not one of the low areas like this. So for example, this will be where one of them is gonna go. I was able to reach my hand in here again, and I can feel the insert that I put right here, and behind it, there's nothing, so I know I'm clear. However, over here, again, if I take the borescope, you can see that I've got a wiring harness right there that I've got to be very mindful of. So it's attached to the underside of the car, so I've got to be really careful there. There's also, see if we can find these, some of these foam pads. There's that wire. See the foam right there as well? I don't want to disrupt that. And the fuel tank is right underneath the car. So it's basically shaped kind of like this and goes all underneath this entire area. That side I'm fine. I just have the exhaust and I got a couple inches to work with. I just got to be careful here. All right, got all my holes labeled, carefully laid out. Even made sure as best I could everything went, you know, kind of in a straight line. I had to be very, very careful with where these are gonna go. So even with that, I'll be very careful making the drill. I'm gonna drill a pilot hole to begin. So next thing I'll do is take these off and do just a quick center punch on all of these, and then double side tape the panels back into the car. Okay, center punch is good on all the holes, and I've also double side taped these in place. What I'll do next is start drilling. So here's what I've done. I have a drill limiting tool, I guess, if you will, which is this, and I've had bad luck with these in the past. I don't trust them, so I went old school. Don't hate, but a piece of tape on there just to block it, just to make sure. Obviously we want to be careful of the fuel tank. All right, fire in the hole. Here we go. Drill is on the lowest speed, so being very careful, and we'll start going through these. I'm going to have to set my depth a little deeper, which is better than running into a problem. All right, I went a little bit, maybe 1/8 of an inch deeper, but I can always go deeper, can't go shallower. And we are through. All right, again, on this side, all I have is the muffler underneath there, so not a huge risk. That side is the more dangerous spot, if you will. Also, what I'm doing, and I did this before when I drilled holes in the floor for the zebra wood and such, took a pick tool. I know that the muffler is not even close over here, but I just took a pick tool and ran it through, and it can go basically almost the length of the pick tool, so I know I've got plenty of room. Additionally, even though I've got double-sided tape, I'm going to use these roofing nails, which are about just a shade under an inch, 1/8 of an inch in diameter. I'll drop them into the hole as I go to maintain alignment. Bad timing, Harbor Freight. Bad timing. Let me down. Actually, in its defense, some of the metal in this car is extremely thick, double layer. So this side is good. Huge fan of these alignment pins as I go. And again, they're basically 1/8 of an inch, so I've got no movement. That way I know everything is properly aligned. So now I'll go ahead and do this side, fingers crossed. Okay, 2 done, so far so good. Right here along this edge, there is a very small gap between this wall and the gas tank. And even though there's clearance, there's maybe 3/4 of an inch below this floor and the gas tank, I wanted to try to get the holes in there. And as you can see, it's not going into the gas tank. It doesn't smell. It's not wet. We are good so far. Knock on wood. Okay, step 1 in terms of drilling is a success. So everything went well. Everything lined up. My gaps are really good. No movement whatsoever, just with my roofing nails in place to hold them, just for alignment purposes. So now what I'll do is pull these panels out, and I have to carefully open up the holes to be able to get the threaded inserts in. One other quick thing here, I got all my roofing nails out. All of these holes have clearance at least the depth of the pick tool, with the exception of this one. So that's the gas tank right there. So I mark it, pull it out, and I've got, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches to work with, and the insert's about 3/8 of an inch long. So we'll be good. Again, it's just all about being super careful. All right, just to be 1000% safe, here's my nail. And there's my nail on the bore scope. So you can see this one especially was a little bit sketchy because of that harness, and I made sure that I was plenty far away from that, just to be safe. All right, next thing I did is grab my aluminum inserts that I'm using, and for these I took the calipers, got a reading on the diameter, went to the correct size drill bit. I also have trust issues, so I've got this little stopper thing from Harbor Freight. I don't really trust these again, so I backed it with a bunch of tape. So now I'll go ahead and drill all the holes out in the car to this diameter. One other little detail that I do when I'm doing these inserts, if I'm doing it in an area where there's dynamat, I take a punch, this one to be exact, again, Harbor Freight, and I cut out the dynamat in a nice circle pattern. And this way the dynamat doesn't get in the way. When I put the insert in, everything fills in nicely. And I did that on all of them. So we're good to go. So now I'll go ahead and drill these out. Yet another detail is after I drill them out, which I've done on all of them, everything went great, I will take factory paint on a Q-tip and add a little paint inside there just to make sure I don't have any bare metal. All about the details. So my red paint is good. Now I'll go ahead and start installing the inserts. All right, if you've been watching CarMiZa, you've probably seen me do this a bunch of times, but for those of you who may be new, I will show you. This is the Rivna tool that I use. It's one of them. I've got another larger one for doing 1/4-20 stuff, but I got this at Harbor Freight. Couple of quick things, little pro tips. I prefer aluminum on these inserts. You can get stainless steel, but they're really, really hard to compress. You got to put a lot of pressure on these. I've broken a bunch of these tools. They're really kind of cheap and they break right here. So you got to be careful with how much pressure you have. If you do the aluminum, you don't need to, really beat the heck out of it. So basically, here is the insert. It's already threaded onto the stud. Then you put it into the hole, push down, clamp down on it. Sometimes what I'll do is loosen up this chrome fitting as well, give it another little bit more of a snug, and then pull this out, and you're good. And I'll show you what it looks like. All right, and that's what it looks like. I just put the one of the screws in there. Another thing too, make sure you're using the right size screw. You want to grab enough thread with the screw. The screw ideally wants to go run the full length of the body of the piece of the insert. If not, I had some shorter screws here in the near wall, and I stripped out a couple of the inserts and I had to replace them. So that's what it looks like. And now you can take, you know, the hardware in and out a million times, which is close to how many times I pulled that out. And you don't have to worry about a degradation in the longevity and the integrity of the screw. All right, 15 machine screws for a piece that lays horizontally, a couple of pieces, but everything came out great. Inserts are 100%. This part again is a little bit sketchy with, you know, fuel tank and gotta be really careful. So it came out really good. So that's going to be it for tonight. Tomorrow night I should be out here again, and we'll get the car floor complete is the goal, and then some. All right, it's the next night. I am really tired. I had a really long work day, but despite that, here I am out in the garage pushing through. So the next thing on the car floor is to drill out the holes and then go ahead and do the countersink. So I'll start off by drilling out the holes. I got the drill press all set and ready. All right, one thing I didn't mention too, obviously I did the same thing, use the correct size drill bit that I did when I did this little test piece earlier. Next thing I'm gonna do is take a deburring tool, thanks again Joe Schmo, and go through. I like to deburr the aluminum. This just makes sure I don't have any sharp edges, and I'll go and do that for all the holes. All right, holes are all good. During the countersink part there, you may have seen me fighting with the drill press and the countersink. I grabbed the wrong countersink inadvertently, and I wanted to get this done while it was still light enough out for you guys to be able to see the video, but you probably seen me do this kind of work before. This material is super thin. It's 0.060 inches, 14 gauge. So as you can see, there's not a whole lot of meat left after I do the countersink, but there's plenty there that's going to hold the screws. So at this point, let's mount it and see how it all looks. All right, it is a few days later. It is Sunday morning, and the panels are in the car. I've got good news and bad news. The good news is the panels are done and in the car. I don't know if it's bad news or not, but for the first time in this build, I'm gonna redo these. I'm not happy with them, and they're gonna be redone in this video. So why am I redoing them? The material is too thin. If you notice here, it's not laying perfectly flat. This again is because the floor is really corrugated and difficult. I'm dealing with a lot of design issues with regard to the hinge and the height of everything, and I don't have much room at all for play, which is why I went with this thinner material, but it bit me. Also, I don't like this lip along here. I want to hang this over a little bit more by about 1/2 inch. That way I can roll the carpet underneath this panel and have the other carpet come up and meet it. So I cut away too much here. So not a big deal. In the grand scheme of things, considering this, you know, the size of the build and all of that, it was 18 hours to get to this point. Much of that was doing the inserts and all that, which I'll reuse. Cost me about $125. I went and got new aluminum, new MDF to make new templates. And I'm going to bring you through kind of a time lapse for the majority of the rest of this to show you me redoing this. And then we'll get to the very end where we've got the new panels in the car. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Okay, fortunately, I saved my 1/4" MDF templates that I used originally. I just put these back in the car, double checked my perimeter, did a little tiny bit of tweaking there. I want to make sure that's as good as possible. So now I'll take this, transfer it to the new 1/4" MDF, and again, I need to hang over this edge by, I've determined 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to start with that. I'll sand it to tweak it. So let me show you how we'll do that. All right, there's one other cool thing I'm going to do here from a design perspective that I want to explain. It'll take just a minute, and I think it's pretty cool. So as you know, at some point when the car is done, I'm going to bring this thing around the country, and especially down, I want to go through Florida, and the southeast states. There's a lot of humidity, a lot of moisture, and the zebra wood is going to swell. I'm in Arizona. It is as dry as it gets. I've done the calculation, and the zebra wood is going to be kind of floating. So again, where it bolts down right there, that is my kind of stretch point. That's going to be my fixed point. That bolt that you see there, it'll do the same thing in the back because there's a seam along there. So it'll kind of stretch in both directions. So again, as it gets more humid, it needs room to be able to come this way, which is why I slotted this hole. Now, what I'm going to do is if I put this fixed floor in place and I have it butted right up against here, there's no room for this thing to be able to move. So what I'm going to do is build this floor where right now when I build the new one, I'm going to trim 3/16 off here. Then I'm going to build a spacer that I'm calling the Florida shim out of 1/8 inch by 1/2 inch flat bar aluminum that'll tuck in behind here. It's basically going to be in there all the time, especially out here in Arizona. When I go to areas where it is more humid and the wood's going to flex, I'll pull that shim out, allowing room for the wood to move back and forth. This is going to be fixed in place, but I need to have this gap in place. So you'll see basically the way it'll look. The carpet's going to hang off this just by about a 1/16 or so. This I've all designed and laid out, and I'm confident it'll work good. So anyway, I'll be trimming this 3/16 shorter here along both edges. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, many of you are probably aware of this little trick, but if not, it's pretty cool. So I need to take this curve, replicate it, but I want it to stick out 3/8 of an inch further. I've got a washer that the edge of the hole in the center to the outside edge is 3/8 of an inch. Place the washer there, take a pencil. Whoop. There we go. Got my nice radius there. All right, so got the pieces ready to cut, the new templates. So this, by the way, is why I don't like using MDF for finished products unless I'm gonna paint it with fiberglass resin. That's from the double-sided tape. So to me, MDF is glorified cardboard. But all right, here we go. This is what it looks like again after I did that little washer trick. So right, wrong, or indifferent, it's gonna copy the radius, again, in this case, 3/8 of an inch. Did that on both sides. So at this point, I'm going to try to time lapse everything. I try to set up the tripod where you guys are going to be able to see the, jigsawing, the routering, and then the finished work in the car itself. So let's go ahead and kick it off. Okay, perimeter is in, and since the time lapse, there was a decent amount of extra work I had to do. So I did trim 3/16 of an inch off the front there. That's going to allow for what I'm calling the Florida shim. More on that later. That needs to be a gap of 3/16. And you can see there is exactly that. My perimeter is good, very good. The gap, or the seam right where the two come together, and the rest of the perimeter, and this gap here. Now, the biggest problem I noticed, which was kind of the issue with that thinner aluminum, and I wasn't able to tell, is that the floor, especially this side, was totally rocking back and forth by like a quarter of an inch. It was not sitting flat. Now you can see I'm within like, it's less than a 1/16, and it's sitting properly flat. So I had to remove more Dynamat, add more Dynamat, do a bunch of shimming, a little massaging, and now it is good. I'll probably, once I get the actual aluminum in, screwed to the floor, I also took a 4-foot level and put it this way and this way. Not to make sure it's level, but just to make sure the floor is not sloped. And it's within probably a 1/16, but I'll probably tweak it with Dynamat once I do the final, get the final floor in. So next, I've got to go in and I'm just going to hand sand and get this tweaked, this area for the spare tire hole. All right, spare tire hole on this side is good to go. If you notice, this overhangs a little bit more. It's basically flush with the vertical wall. And because this is, kind of rolling in here, I'm going to roll the carpet underneath the aluminum and have this carpet come up, and then they're going to kind of seam underneath the panel where you really don't see it. So that again is why I wanted to redesign this a little bit nicer. So this side is good to go. Now I'm going to do the same with this other side. Whew, holy cow. All right, there was a lot more work, but I found a lot of flaws with the last design. So before I put the 2 panels in, this is what it looks like with a bunch of Dyna tape over the areas that I needed to remove. I also needed to shim some up, and basically I think I've got the floor within less than a 1/16 of completely flat, which is really, I think, important. So I'm gonna grab the panels, show you what those look like installed. And this is, again, still just the mock-up MDF. Okay, these templates are done, and they're so much better than the last ones. So first off, again, the diameter of the hole is basically the same as that vertical wall. This is gonna give me a little bit of a lip right here, again, to be able to tuck carpet from this and roll underneath, and I think that'll be a nice transition. Again, this area is intentionally going to be kind of industrial and just functional. It doesn't have to be as cosmetically appealing as, like, the areas that you typically will see. Another thing that I had to do that I was fighting with is getting these panels to lay flat. Again, this was off by a quarter. It was rocking back and forth, which was part of the problem that I didn't like with the other piece, because I tightened it down and it kind of bent. So now, if you notice, it's a little tricky to see here, but I have exactly the same gaps. I could do that on the other side as well. This is just a shim, just to represent the 3/16 I need for the Florida shim, I'm going to call it. But again, everything is level. My gaps are good. This seam right here, barely visible, and everything is good. So at this point, I've got to go to the next part, which is going to be, how can I line up the existing inserts and drill new holes when I do the aluminum? And I'll show you my little trick for that. All right, so here's how I'm going to retrace the holes for the inserts. I took a piece of really thin clear plexi. Wasn't big enough, so I taped 2 of them together with packing tape. Double side taped it to my piece. Excuse me. Now I'll cut it with a fresh blade. That's going to give me a piece of clear plexi that's the same size as each panel. I did the same thing for the other panel. And then we'll get these in the car, the clear plexi, to be able to lay out the holes. There's what it looks like when it's cut. Same philosophy as a flush trim bit. I was actually thinking about it. You probably could oversize cut this and then cut it with the router, but it might melt. So I just use a new sharp blade, take a few passes, and you get a really nice, crisp, clean cut. So do the same thing to the other side. Other side complete, time to put them in the car. All right, so I double side taped my plexiglass panels to the floor, and then I put these pieces in just to make sure everything lines up properly. And if you notice, it's really tough to see. There's the plexi, and it lines up perfectly with this. That way I make sure that everything is aligned properly. Now, do this very carefully. You can see how nice and tight fit that is. This comes out, and there's my plexi. So now we'll go and very carefully mark the plexiglass where each of the screws go, and then transfer this to the aluminum once I get the new aluminum cut. Okay, I went through and marked each hole, and then I used a center punch just to mark it. And then again, I'll transfer this over to the aluminum once I get the new pieces cut. Okay, let's jigsaw some 1/8 inch aluminum. It is still Sunday, but it's like 7:30 at night, I think. I started at 9:30 this morning, took a lunch break, but otherwise been out here. So hopefully you guys are able to see this. I'll go ahead and cut this again with the jigsaw. With the 1/8 inch, I definitely want to use WD-40, go slow speed on the saw, and really take my time. All right, everything went well, got it all cleaned up really good. Now I'll double side tape the templates onto the aluminum and run it through the router for the flush trim. I started today at 9:28 this morning. Took a decent break for lunch. Did a couple things around the house, not much, but it's 9:45. Haven't had dinner, but I am really happy. This is the way these should have been done the first time, and I'm glad I redid them. And if you're thinking, well, what else should you redo in the car? The answer is nothing. These were, I feel I failed with the design, and this came out much better. We still have to drill the holes, countersink, mount them, make sure everything's 100%, which will get wrapped up in this video, but not tonight. So tomorrow night I'll probably do some stuff around the house and then get this done in the next couple of days. We'll get this video posted. All right, it's a couple of nights later and I am back to it. So at this point, what I've done is double side taped my plexiglass template to each of the pieces of aluminum, carefully aligning them, make sure everything is lined up properly. I've got, again, my little punch holes here in the plexi, and I will go ahead and use the punch to punch the aluminum, peel this off, and then we'll go ahead and get the holes drilled for the bolts. All right, got all my marks set, and now at this point I am going to drill the new holes. To do this, I'm going to do this in kind of a slow, methodical two-step process, which I will time lapse. I'm using, I believe it's an 1/8 inch bit, which is smaller than I need, and then I've got my final diameter here. So what you're going to see me do is put each of the two panels in, clamp down the piece, drill my pilot holes, take the piece, put it in the car, check it just to make sure everything lines up properly, and then come back and then open up all the holes with the larger diameter drill bit. All right, so that was, again, 2 rounds of holes that I drilled. One small pilot hole, I believe it was an 1/8 inch, and then I put them in the car, made sure that the holes were lining up properly, and then I took both panels and then went to the final diameter hole. And it's pretty tough to see here, but there is, you can see these line up like really, really nicely. See that? There's that one there as well. So I would say that part is definitely a success. So now all I've got left to do is to countersink these. So I'll time lapse this part as well. What I'm going to do is set the depth with the countersink on the drill press, lock it in place, and then I'll go ahead and countersink all these holes. All right, so at this point, I'm just getting my depth set for the countersink. I did a couple of test passes. I'll do one last one here, just on a piece of strap, just to make sure that my depth is good. I do have it locked as well, so it's not going to go anywhere. This way I get a nice consistent depth. Using the correct countersink this time as well. Thank you, Joe Schmo. now, take a look at that. I like the bolt to be just barely recessed, so we are looking good. So from here, I'll go ahead and drill all the countersinks. All right, countersink's complete. On the back side, you can see there's a little bit of a burr here. And again, I'll use the deburring tool to remove these. Much better. All right, and here's what it looks like with the countersink all complete. Notice I did label the upside for both pieces. That would have really stunk if I countersunk the wrong side. Next, what I'm gonna do is hit this with a random orbital with a 40 grit, just again to scuff up the entire thing. That'll prep for when we go to do upholstery. Additionally, I'm going to knock down this edge probably with, you know, like something finer, like 220 or something like that. This edge, when you router this aluminum, I don't know if you can hear that. It's like sharp. I almost cut my finger on the edge of it. So you get a really nice crisp edge with when you do router and machine this stuff. So I'll go ahead and get it sanded, and then final thing is going to be a good cleanup on the material, and then we'll test fit it in the car. All right, so here's version 1, and here is version 2, all set. Doesn't look very different, does it? But I can assure you it is a night and day difference. The 1/8 inch aluminum is so much stronger, more rigid. Also, here's my little spacer. I mean, that's exactly the gap I wanted. Notice here, this little lip right here I've got under here. This will allow me to tuck the carpet. You can see how nice and flush these screw heads sit. You have zero tolerance with this. When you're dealing with a flathead screw, if you're off and it's, you know, at an angle, it's gonna sit real crooked, and they sit beautifully. I think that looks really nice, and it just shows you the level of detail. Those plexiglass templates worked great. Couldn't be happier with it. This is exactly the philosophy of this build. This is look at how nice and tight that is. This is as good as I can get, which is exactly what I'm after. It took me, guys, 15 hours to make these second set, 18 to do the first set. Difference in 3 hours is probably that I already had the inserts installed. I did have to do a decent amount of tweaking even after I had the panels ready to go in. I took a 4-foot level, ran it this way, and then ran it this way to make sure that the floor is totally flat. It's not, you know, high on one end or whatever. This way, when I do the actual pull floor and it motorizes down, it sits perfectly flat. So I am really, really happy. Again, you can see all the edges there, and it's really thick and solid. I know it doesn't look a whole lot different, but with it being 1/8 inch, it's so much more rigid. When I tightened the other one down, it like bowed like this. It was super flimsy. So I guess lesson learned there. So that will wrap up this video. If you have not already, please like and subscribe. More music content coming soon. The next thing is going to be working on the actual hinge, that design for the pull floor, and the motorization. So thank you very much for watching. I certainly appreciate it. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments, and I will talk to you all very soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.